The man sat alone at the corner table, steam curling up from a chipped white teacup, as if the warmth was trying, and failing, to reach his chest. The café buzzed softly around him, spoons clinking, chairs scraping, lives moving forward. He didn't notice any of it. He was staring into his tea like it might answer a question he'd been carrying for years. And then, from behind him, a fragile voice whispered something so unexpected that his hand froze mid-air. Before we dive into what she said, and how it changed everything, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this are shared here to remind us that even the quietest moments can change a life forever. His name was Daniel Harper. At 38, he looked older, worn down by sleepless nights and responsibilities that never clocked out. His jacket was clean but frayed at the cuffs, his shoes polished out of habit rather than pride. Every afternoon, after dropping his 7-year-old son Leo at after-school care, Daniel came to this café. It was the one small ritual he allowed himself, a cup of tea, silence, and a few minutes where he didn't have to be strong for anyone. Daniel hadn't planned to be a single father. Life had unraveled fast, the way it often does when you're too busy surviving to notice the cracks. His wife, Emily, had been laughter and light, the kind of person who filled rooms without trying. When illness took her, it didn't just leave an empty space, it left a void that swallowed everything around it. Daniel remembered the hospital room, the machines, the promises he made through tears. "I'll take care of Leo. I'll be enough." But some days, the promise felt heavier than he could carry. Money was tight. He worked long shifts as a delivery driver, sometimes skipping meals so Leo could have seconds. He never complained, never asked for help. Pride and exhaustion made a dangerous pair. People saw him as quiet, polite, forgettable. No one saw the nights he sat on the edge of Leo's bed after nightmares, whispering reassurances he barely believed himself. That afternoon, as Daniel lifted his teacup, the chair across from him scraped the floor. He assumed someone was just passing by, but then came the whisper again, close this time. "You pour your tea like a man who's lost someone." He turned, startled. An old woman stood there, bent slightly, her silver hair neatly tied back. Her eyes were sharp, observant, the kind that had seen decades of joy and grief and survived both. She gestured to the empty chair. "May I?" Daniel hesitated. He wasn't in the mood for conversation, especially not with a stranger. But something in her expression, gentle, unafraid, made him nod. She sat slowly, folding her hands on the table. For a moment, neither spoke. The café noise filled the gap. Then she smiled faintly. "I'm Margaret," she said. "And you are very tired." Daniel let out a short, humorless laugh. "That obvious?" "To someone who has lived long enough," she replied. "Yes." He looked back at his tea, unsure why he didn't just excuse himself. "I'm fine," he said, more out of habit than truth. Margaret tilted her head. "No," she said softly. "You're surviving. There's a difference." The words landed heavier than he expected. He felt something tighten in his chest. "I didn't mean to bother you," he muttered. "You didn't," she said. "I meant to bother you." That earned a real smile from him, the first in days. She ordered tea of her own, then watched him with patient curiosity. "Do you have children?" she asked. "One," Daniel said. "A son." Her eyes softened. "So did I, long ago." He didn't ask where her son was. He sensed it wasn't a happy ending. Instead, he found himself talking about Leo's obsession with dinosaurs, about the way he insisted on wearing mismatched socks, about how he still reached for Daniel's hand when crossing the street. Daniel hadn't realized how much he needed to say these things until they were spilling out. Margaret listened without interrupting. When he finally stopped, embarrassed by his own openness, she nodded. "You're doing well," she said. He shook his head. It never feels like enough. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. That's because love doesn't measure itself in ease. It measures itself in presence. Daniel swallowed hard. My wife used to say things like that. Margaret smiled knowingly. Then she was wise. They sat in silence again, but it was different now, comfortable, warm. As she stood to leave, Margaret placed a small folded paper beside his cup. Read this when you feel alone, she said. He watched her walk toward the door, then disappear into the street. He didn't unfold the paper right away. Something told him to save it, like a lifeline you don't grab until the water reaches your chin. That night, after Leo fell asleep clutching his favorite stuffed bear, Daniel finally opened it. Inside, in neat handwriting, were just a few words. Your strength is teaching your son how to love the world without fear. Don't underestimate that. Daniel sat on the couch, paper trembling in his hands. For the first time since Emily's death, he cried, not from despair, but from release. The days that followed didn't magically become easier. Bills still arrived. Work was still exhausting. Leo still had bad days at school. But something had shifted. Daniel started noticing small victories, the way Leo laughed uncontrollably at bad jokes, the pride in his eyes when Daniel showed up early. He began to believe that maybe being enough didn't mean being perfect. A week later, Daniel returned to the cafe at the same time. He half expected Margaret to be there, but she wasn't. Disappointment surprised him. He ordered his tea and sat, watching the door. She never came. Months passed. Seasons changed. Daniel picked up extra work, then a better route. He saved a little. He started volunteering at Leo's school, something he'd never thought he had time for. Life remained heavy, but it no longer felt hopeless. One rainy afternoon, the cafe owner approached him. You knew Margaret, didn't you? She asked gently. Daniel's heart skipped. Yes, he said. Why? She used to come here every day, the woman said. She passed away last week. Before she did, she asked me to give this to you if I ever saw you again. She handed him a small envelope. Inside was a photograph, Margaret, younger, standing with a smiling teenage boy. On the back were words that made Daniel's breath catch. My son believed the world was kinder than it looked. I see that same belief in you. Pass it on. Daniel closed his eyes, overwhelmed by gratitude and grief for a woman he barely knew but would never forget. He understood then that some people enter your life not to stay, but to redirect you. That night, as he tucked Leo into bed, his son looked up and said, Dad, you seem happier lately. Daniel smiled, brushing hair from Leo's forehead. I met someone who reminded me how important you are, he said. Leo grinned sleepily. I already knew that. As Daniel turned off the light, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Quiet, steady, real. And if this story touched you, if it reminded you that a single moment or a single person can change everything, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because sometimes, all we need is a whisper at the right time to find our way again.